Dangling plot threads and dumb decisions, Avatar: The Way of Water is gorgeous, epic, and moving, but these plot holes prove it isn't perfect. After the return of Colonel Quaritch, Jake and his family decide to go into hiding to protect the Unobtainium clan from the Colonel's wrath. Since the Colonel only wants revenge on his human form's killer, Jake assumes Quaritch will leave the Unobtainium alone, but going into hiding doesn't guarantee anything. The plan hinges on the assumption that Quaritch knows what Jake knows. Jake didn't exactly announce to the Resource Development Administration, aka the RDA, that he'd be leaving the jungle. Quaritch has no reason to believe Jake and his family would leave their home in the Hallelujah Mountains, where they'd be mostly safe thanks to the Flux Vortex and the Unobtainium's guerrilla warfare tactics. It follows that he would try to find Jake in the Hallelujah Mountains first. Even if Quaritch couldn't seize the Hallelujah Mountains, he would certainly be capable of taking individual Na'vi prisoners, like he already did with Spider and almost did with Jake's children. If the Unobtainium tried to explain that Jake fled, Quaritch might not believe them. After all, he didn't believe the innocent Metkayina tribes when they told him they hadn't seen Jake, and he still torched their homes. It was only by a stroke of luck that the Unobtainium tribe was spared the same fate. Jake has a huge bounty on his head in the Way of Water, but the plot may be overstating his importance. Does the RDA really think that taking out a single person will silence the Na'vi insurrection for good? It makes sense for Quaritch to be single-mindedly focused on finding Jake. He doesn't care about the other Na'vi, he just wants revenge. But Quaritch isn't the only one making decisions at the RDA. Certainly, killing Jake would deal a huge blow to the Resistance. He was the one who rallied the Na'vi to victory 15 years ago, and without him, it would take them a long time to regroup. Jake is also one of the few characters on Pandora who has inside knowledge of the RDA. But he's not the only one who knows how to use human technology, and he's not the only one capable of organizing an army. This oversight is especially apparent in the battle at sea. Viewers will notice that Tonowari gathers his clan into an imposing battle formation, and on very short notice too. This moment reminds audiences that the Na'vi are quite capable of organizing themselves. Clearly, the movement to free Pandora will live on even if Jake dies, so maybe the last thing the RDA wants is to turn Jake into a martyr. When they learn that their kids are being held hostage in the forest, Jake and Neytiri swoop in to rescue them. It's a good thing that they're able to respond so quickly, but it's a little surprising that their rescue party consists of only 2 people. Why didn't they ask their clan for reinforcements? Perhaps with backup, they could have prevented Spider's capture. You'd think Jake and Neytiri would pull out all the stops to save their children. Jake and his son were both equipped with throat mics, so it should have been relatively easy for Jake to radio for help. After all, it's not like Jake and his family are the only Na'vi using human technology. Considering that Jake and the Unobtainium clan have been staging guerrilla warfare against the RDA for the past year, it's hard to believe that all the Na'vi aren't equipped with throat mics. While there may not be an in-story reason for this, the choice at least makes sense from a storytelling perspective. Most likely, the filmmakers wanted to keep the cast to a manageable size, and that meant not dragging a bunch of additional characters into the fight. The film is about Jake and his family, so it makes sense that only these characters would be involved. If nothing else, this is one movie epic in scale, but maintaining an intimate focus. Still, no doubt some viewers were frustrated watching this scene, knowing that Jake could have made a smarter move. Without Unobtainium, the events of Avatar would have never happened. After all, it was the whole reason the RDA funded the mission on Pandora.
Because this little gray rock sells for 20 million a kilo. That's the only reason.
Yet Unobtainium seems to be the last thing on the RDA's mind these days. General Ardmore insists that the company's new objective is colonization, not mining, because Earth is pretty much a lost cause at this point. It's understandable why the RDA's priorities might have changed. 15 years have passed on Earth, more than enough time for war and climate change to render it nearly unlivable. Perhaps all the Unobtainium in the world won't do them any good because soon everyone on the planet is going to need to jump ship. Still, it's a little strange that the film never mentions Unobtainium, not even once. You would think that the miraculous material would come in handy for the RDA if they want to expand their colony and crush the Na'vi resistance. The RDA's purpose is further obfuscated in the scene where Tolkun hunter Mick Scoresby extracts a chemical called Amrita from the Tolkun's brain. Scoresby brags that Amrita can effectively stop aging entirely, making it eclipse Unobtainium as the most valuable resource on Pandora. He also adds that Amrita is paying for everything on Pandora, which seems to contradict the notion that the RDA cares only about colonization. While it makes sense that Amrita is extremely valuable, it seems doubtful it would be of much use to the humans back on a dying planet Earth. Colonel Quaritch goes to some great lengths to bait Jake and capture his children, even though he already has one of Jake's children in his custody. Okay, Spider is technically Jake's adoptive son, but Jake still cares about the boy. Why lay out an elaborate trap for Jake when the RDA already has something Jake wants? Obviously, the real reason Quaritch doesn't hold Spider hostage is clear. Spider is his son, and as one key scene from the climax demonstrates, Quaritch loves his son more than he hates Jake.
I'm getting all emotional. Might just give you a big wet kiss.
Yet, once again, Quaritch isn't the one in charge, and it seems like General Ardmore has no such qualms about using Spider that way. Why doesn't she just order Quaritch to ransom his son? The only reason why the RDA might not take advantage of the prisoner they already had would be if Quaritch was convinced that Spider was genuinely cooperating with his captors. But General Ardmore would need to be convinced too, and somehow it seems doubtful she would automatically trust the boy like Quaritch. Avatar: The Way of Water isn't the first movie in the Avatar franchise to contradict itself about the science of Pandora. The first film made it clear that humans couldn't survive long without a mask in Pandora's atmosphere. Specifically, they'd be unconscious after 20 seconds and dead after 4 minutes. But that doesn't seem to stop Quaritch from opening an airlock and then firing on Jake for a heck of a lot longer than 20 seconds. Though granted, he's basically a finely tuned murder machine and would have no trouble holding his breath that long. But the sequel also plays a little fast and loose with the specifics. Early in the movie, Spider establishes a key rule of world building. He tells the Na'vi, "You can breathe Earth air for hours, I can only breathe yours for like 10 seconds. Yet Quaritch, who now inhabits a Na'vi avatar with recombinant DNA, Recom for short, doesn't seem to follow this rule. Quaritch is quite comfortable breathing Pandora's air as well as the Earth air inside the RDA compounds, aside from a brief moment when Quaritch sucks in a few gulps from a gas mask before talking to Spider. One possible explanation here is that the Recoms were bred to be able to breathe in both Earth's atmosphere and that of Pandora, though it might have been nice if the film had taken a moment to mention that.
Just breathe. Breathe.
To be honest, Quaritch attempting to ride a Banshee wasn't the smartest move. Surely Quaritch could tell that Spider was hoping the Colonel would humiliate himself. However, that's not a plot hole in itself because it makes perfect sense for Quaritch's character. He's stubborn and wants to prove he can do anything that Jake can do, so that's why he takes the bait. However, one moment from the Banshee scene doesn't quite add up. Quaritch is seen tumbling off the cliff on the back of a Banshee much like Jake did in the first film, only to emerge victorious a minute later. How does he learn so quickly? Clearly the Colonel is a novice to Banshee riding, not even knowing that he should muzzle the Banshee before trying to mount it. According to the rules established in the first movie, Quaritch could have only tamed the beast by completing the bond, which involves linking the nerve receptors in his queue to the Banshee's receptors. But how does Quaritch know about this? Most likely, the RDA knows about this ritual from Jake's video logs from the first movie, but whether or not Quaritch knows is a different story. Knowing Quaritch, he wouldn't do his homework. He has a pretty rudimentary grasp of the Na'vi language, to the point that Spider says he has the vocabulary of a 3-year-old. These Avatar movies sure do have a grudge against babies.
You're like a baby.
Anyway, the point is the Colonel would have probably only researched the bare minimum necessary for the mission, and unless he predicted that his guide would goad him into trying to tame a Banshee, the bonding ritual probably wasn't in his plans. The first half of The Way of Water seems to be building toward Quaritch and his fellow Recoms trying to go undercover among the Na'vi. That's why they go out of their way to tame Banshees and learn the language, so they can get close enough to Jake to kill him and then destroy the Na'vi insurrection from the inside. Yet this plot thread is abandoned halfway through the movie. It's understandable why the filmmakers didn't take this route. The undercover angle was already explored in the first movie with Jake, and honestly the Recoms wouldn't have gotten very far. They wouldn't fool a real Na'vi for an instant. However, the way that Quaritch and his team switch gears is a little contrived. The RDA conveniently picks up a signal from a rogue gunship, which sends the plot in a new direction. Everything that happens in the second half of the movie hinges on Quaritch guessing correctly that the unidentified aircraft will lead him straight to Jake. That's an awfully lucky guess. Up until this point, Quaritch had every reason to believe that Jake was in the Hallelujah Mountains. Besides, it feels implausible that General Ardmore would let Quaritch travel halfway around Pandora on a hunch. There's one plot hole in Avatar: The Way of Water so enormous that Reddit users called it out almost immediately after the film came out. Where is Jake's army when he needs it most? The Metcaina clan had Jake's back throughout the first hostage exchange on the ship and the ensuing battle, but the moment that the chief's daughter, Soraya, is rescued, the clan is nowhere to be found, leaving Jake and his family to fend for themselves. So why did they bail? Perhaps the Metcaina retreated after Soraya was safe because they no longer had a personal stake in the conflict, or maybe they were physically unable to help. One Reddit user speculated they couldn't get past the fire on the water. That is a fair point, though it seems like the Metcaina might have been able to swim under. Meanwhile, another Redditor offered a solid explanation, even if it wasn't an in-universe explanation, saying that the real focus of this part was the family unit. Had the filmmakers included the whole army in the final battle, it would have become too crowded. Trying to focus on any characters other than Jake and his family would honestly have only hurt the story.